Hello, it's me. Welcome back to my channel and my videos. Nice to see you. And today I want to do a second part of my Final Fantasy series, I guess you can say ranking series. You can say now. In the previous video, I ranked Final Fantasy antagonists in terms of their power. It might have not been perfect, but I already posted it, so nothing I can do about it now, right? And today I wanted to go through the main villains of the series and rank them, but not in terms of power or against one another. Instead, what I want to do is that I want to take a look at every antagonist or villain, whichever you prefer more, and rank how good they are as antagonists, how good they are in terms of character, and how good is their style or design is. With that being said, this video will be more of a free discussion that probably going to end up being long as well. I did not expect the last video to be 50 minutes, but it was. This video might be long as well, and it will not be a deep discussion by any means. It will be something quick and fun, so hopefully you're gonna enjoy it for whatever it is worth. Now let us start once again with Garland from Final Fantasy 1. As a antagonist, I would say he's actually a pretty high tier antagonist, and I will measure the characters in high tier, low tier, and mid tier, pretty much to make it really simple for everyone. Now, as antagonist, he pushes the entire story along, and he has a clear goal. Especially if you believe into the Cydia Final Fantasy 1 connection theory. And his goal is clearly established through his character, and his character is also a good opposition to the main characters. Now, Final Fantasy 1 came out a really long time ago, therefore it had almost close to no substance at all. The storytelling was very simple, that's why you can't expect any really deep or interesting or unique ploys or plays from Garland as an antagonist, but for his time he was good because he had the clearly established goal and he pushed for this goal for the reasons which were clearly established and believable because of his character. Simple and easy. Now, as a character, you might think that he might be low because, again, he's from this old game where everything was simple, but I actually place him as a high tier character. Mostly because of Dissidia. Dissidia does actually wonders for both Garland and Warrior of Light as far as establishing them as characters go. Now, even though he kinda, at least by the first look of it, should fit this mold of your standard regular bad knight who is bad for the sake of being bad and such, he's not that. The reason why he fights so much, well, first of all, he likes to fight and he has anger issues, that is true, but another reason is because he believes that he deserves nothing more than war. He believes that fate itself and gods kind of push him down this path and he cannot do anything to escape it, and therefore he embraces it, and there's really no moral or emotional issues that he might have with embracing the fact that he was pushed down this path of endless fighting, because once again he likes fighting, so in the end he does like that. So, and this is interesting because it creates this idea that Garland, he could have been good and he was good, but because of the things that happened he's not good anymore. But even though he's brutal, he's not really cruel or even evil by the standard definition of the word, because it's not like he would ever backstab you or be a mindless beast who just wishes for more and more fighting. Time and time again, it's been established that he easily is able to see the bigger picture. For example, how when in Dissidia, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, he is actually the one who approaches the Warrior of Light and tells him that there is a bigger issue at hand, being Shinryu, and that they need to stop fighting and come to their place, to Spiritus, in order to figure out how they can combat this issue, and which shows that he understands that there are problems that he cannot solve by just fighting by himself, and that there are problems which need to be attended to before you can fight. He also does not lack sympathy, because in Final Fantasy Dissidia 012 it's been established that he does feel sympathy for Chaos and for his situation. It's not like he relates to Chaos, because Chaos actually has a very drastically different story than Garland, but he still feels simple sympathy to him. He feels for the guy, which once again shows that he has positive emotions. You know, Garland in the end is just a person, and you can see that he is just a person from the points which we see throughout the game. Now, in terms of his design, I decided to say that he's a medium tier character. He has this metal Dark Knight outfit with a huge fuck off sword, and he looks really good in it, and for his time I guess it was somewhat unique. Nowadays it's not that unique, it's pretty standard, but he still looks pretty good in it, so I mean, yeah, not much I can say there. Now from Garland we will move on to Final Fantasy II, and I will take a sip of water, hopefully it's not gonna be too loud, Jesus. Final Fantasy II, Emperor Mathias. As antagonist, it's easy, he's a high tier antagonist in my opinion. He is the definition of antagonist who does not go down easily. He was defeated, but then because of his ambition, he divided himself into two parts. One went to hell and became ruler of hell, while the other went to heaven and became the ruler of heaven. That is the definition of a cockroach, and I love it. He's also not your general villain who wishes to destroy the world or something. He actually wishes to rule everyone, be it gods or people or whatever. So yeah, for his time, not that usual, which I can appreciate. He's a high tier character, and he's a high tier character for the same reason why Chocolata from JoJo is a high tier character in my opinion. Now, he's not complex and he's not deep. He's an evil, ambitious, cruel asshole who wishes for power and is ready to do anything he wishes for this power, and who views himself above anyone and everyone else. That is who Mathias is. And honestly, he doesn't need to be more than that. Like, sometimes you like to have tragic story or some sort of reason as to why your bad guy acts bad, but with Mathias, he's one of those characters who does not need that. He's an asshole, and we love him for this. Now, the reason why he's so good is because he has two key things which help help his character overall, you can say. It is his smarts and his fashion, his style. Mathias is elegant and Mathias is a genius, and that really helps set his character apart from a regular cruel villain who's just strong but also kind of dumb and just brutal, and that's it. Because Mathias is not that. Mathias is, on top of being strong, smart and fashionable. He knows etiquette, he knows how to play the situation, and those little pieces which you add to his character help give him this fresh twist. Same way with Chocolate from JoJo, almost said Final Fantasy, Jesus. And I mean, he's a high tier character in terms of design. The guy looks like a JoJo character before I believe JoJo was even a thing. He has this fabulous, beautiful outfit, and he has those not horn hair. Well, one of his outfits actually have horn hairs, but he has this fabulous, flamboyant haircut. And I mean, yeah, what else do you really need when it comes to designing a fabulous looking mage? Now, next one is from Final Fantasy III. We have Cloud of Darkness. Now, Cloud of Darkness was an interesting one because I will come out and state my bias immediately. I actually like her. She is actually one of my most favorite characters in Final Fantasy. Not sure why, maybe I'm just horny, but I do really like her. Now, as far as antagonists, I would say she's a mid-tier antagonist, and the reason why is because she comes only at the very end, and that damages her as antagonist a lot, because usually antagonists who kind of plays the scene, like he kind of, or the kind of antagonist who affects the things which happen in the story behind the scene, and then they come out at the very end. It's kind of overplayed and it's not that interesting. Even though I'm not really sure if Cloud of Darkness really manipulated everything in Final Fantasy III that much, but maybe she did. I actually don't remember that part, but when I read about her, it said that she did, but it actually would not tie into her character, but that's a topic for another discussion. But the reason why I place her as mid-tier instead of low-tier is because her concept, at the very least, is interesting. She is not a person, but instead a primordial creature, an avatar of darkness, and she comes into the realm only when there's a balance between dark and light energies. And she comes to fix it by pretty much destroying the whole world. Which kind of makes sense if you put yourself into position of a avatar of darkness, I guess. And that's why she's kind of interesting, because she's not really evil. Like, she's antagonist, but she's not antagonist because she's an asshole, because she wants power, because she wants annihilation. She's antagonist because her action caused direct harm to heroes and people who heroes try to protect. But it's really hard to explain with her, but it's same as Death. Like, you see Death as an antagonist in a sense, but it's not like Death is evil. It's not like Death does what it does because it wants to. No, it's just part of life. And same way Cloud of Darkness is part of life, because she's Avatar of Darkness, and darkness is part of life. And when there's imbalance, she comes in, and if this balance cannot be fixed, she just destroys the whole place. Now, in terms of character, I decided to give her a hard mid-tier. And I want to specify that it's hard. Like, I was thinking about giving her low tier, but decided to go with mid-tier still. Now, because she's not a person, but instead a avatar of darkness, she does not really have that much of a character. Like, her whole concept is that she does not have personality because she's not a person, but then the game still feels like it needs to make her cruel and evil, because otherwise, how would you hate her? You know, oh, she's antagonist, but she's not evil. Oh, that's impossible, you know? It kind of felt like Final Fantasy III tried to fit both of their feet into two different shoes with Cloud of Darkness, and it did not work out. Gladly, in Final Fantasy Dissidia, her character is a little bit better, where it does feel like, even though she's the Avatar of Darkness, there is a small hint of personality to her. For example, it is shown that she hates imbalance and everything that is not balanced and everything that is abnormal. For example, when mannequins, which are artificial people, you can say, invade Final Fantasy Dissidia world, she actually is willing to help the Warriors of Light to close, so they would close the portal from which they come, because she hates mannequins because they are abnormal. Which once again ties into her character, because her whole point is that Avatar, Cloud of Darkness comes in as Avatar of Darkness only when there is imbalance. And imbalance is abnormal, meaning that anything that is abnormal she will hate. That ties into her, into who she is, and I like that. That is interesting. And another weird part is that she seems to have a weird fascination with humans who defy her expectations. that is a small plot point which was brought up between her and Laguna, and I believe his name was Laguna in Final Fantasy Dissidia, but it was never elaborated upon more. So yeah, it's kind of in this place where it's like it is there, but there's not a lot of it. And in terms of style, I decided to give her a high tier as well because she might look basic, but I really like her, you know, this ethereal like outfit with her yellow piranhas like tentacle things, and her, you know, haircut, and how she's always very floaty, you know, she always floats, and she, which makes her look very ethereal once again, and she barely has any clothes, and you know, I really like that. I really like that. Maybe it can work better if you tone down some of the so-called sexy notes of her, but overall I think her design is good. Now, next one is from Final Fantasy IV, and that is Golbez. As antagonist, I decided to give him mid-tier because he is alright, but I mean, first of all, he does not do anything special as antagonist, he just kind of fulfills his role, and the other problem is that he was mind controlled, and therefore you can't really attribute the things that he does to him, you need to attribute them to Zemus instead. So because of all of that, I decided to say that he's just a mid-tier antagonist, you know. He does things that he does, and that's it. Golbez works better as a side character. I don't even consider him that much of an antagonist, but because I can't really rank Zemus himself because he's so plain, I decided to go with Golbez. He's low tier as a character because once again he was mind controlled, so his evil personality, so to say, is not real. I think he's I think him being a villain is done much better in Dissidia, because in Dissidia at least there's a clear reason as to why he's a villain, so to say, why he's antagonist, and it's because he believes that him being summoned for chaos it's for his sins which he committed, and that he needs to atone for those sins by being antagonist who heroes can defeat to grow stronger. That is pretty much his mentality, and on top of that, he in general always likes to help heroes by giving them hints which would point them in the right direction, pretty much. So yeah, fallen hero, I guess, is more suited for Golbez than antagonist, and he has a mid-tier design. And just like Garland, his outfit is pretty standard, something you would expect a Warlock to have. The best piece of his outfit is probably his dragon. That part is really nice when it wraps around him, kind of, and adds it to his overall outfit, but that is about it. And now, next one is Exdeath from Final Fantasy V, one of my favorites as well. He's a high tier antagonist. Sometimes you just need antagonists who are complete assholes, and just like Mateus, Exdeath fulfills this role, and just like Mateus, he's really hard to keep down as well. He's knocked down many times, but he never stays down, and then in the end, he even achieves his goal, which was to merge with Void, and you know, props for that, you know. Now as a character, he's low tier. I love Exdeath, but I gotta be honest, and as a character, he's low tier, he has no personality. He is a evil guy who will laugh at you and then will tell you about his evil plan, and then will proceed to explain how you will suffer because of his evil plan, and then he will laugh in his evil laugh and attack you. That is the type of character Exdeath is. It's nothing creative, it's very simple and basic, and the only interesting point of his character is that he himself is not against vanishing, because he believes that the Void will claim everything, and therefore he himself is not against dying, like at all. So that is an interesting point of his character, I guess, but that is about it. And now in terms of style, high tier, easily. I really like the unusual colors he has. They are very bright and soft, and it's unusual for a villain in general. and I like how his whole outfit is kind of display on him being a corrupted, so to say, paladin or knight, and also him looking like a corrupted paladin or knight while being a warlock. That is interesting as well. Now, next one is a big one, and it's Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. What can I say about Kefka that hasn't been said before? As an antagonist, he's high tier antagonist. He is a subtle horror. You follow him and you see him nothing more than a jester. You assume that, oh, he's probably going to be a side antagonist annoyance or something like that. But then he backstabs the Emperor, takes the power of gods, and actually becomes the god of magic. I mean, it's subtle, it's impactful, it's strong, and it's you remember it. As a character, he's a high tier character because Kefka is broken. He feels empty inside and he cannot feel positive emotions because of experiment that was done on him. He understands it because throughout the story there are some hints that he understands that he is broken, and he tries to fill the emptiness inside of him with violence. There are some points in the story where it kind of looks like he wishes for something positive. For example, there's a slight second of regret when he kills the Emperor, and a slight second of confusion and almost sadness when he sees heroes fighting against him because they care for one another. You can see just subtle moments of him almost wishing he had this, but ultimately he cannot feel those things because he is broken. He literally cannot feel them, and therefore it frustrates him, and the only thing that he can try to fill his emptiness with is unending and just completely off the roof 101 violence and chaos and destruction. He's also lonely. He's really lonely, and an interesting thing about him is that when he dies in Final Fantasy VI, he does not laugh or scream, but he simply and quietly fades away, which is pretty shocking. When I saw it when I was playing it, I played it when I was maybe 8, 9, and when I saw that, I did not expect that. I was expecting fireworks and screams and laughs, but it wasn't there. I believe that his character does a really good job exploring themes of nihilism for the most part and mental trauma, if you really think about it. And in terms of design, I mean, he's high tier. As a jester, he looks like an amazing jester. He looks very subtly intimidating. Like, you can sense that there's something creepy beneath the surface with him, even though he's also really stylish and bright and colorful. And in his god form, he's just gorgeous. He's fabulous. He has this I mean, he looks gorgeous. What else do you want me to say? You know? Next we have Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. It maybe sounded like I was shitting on Sephiroth yesterday, so let me do a better job today. As antagonist, I would say he's a mid-tier antagonist. Now, let me explain my position. The things that Sephiroth does are evil, and they cause heroes to act against him. But he never does those things specifically against heroes. He does not even really think about them because he thinks of themselves as beneath him. And because he never does anything directly to the heroes, I struggle to put him as a high tier antagonist. I think of him as more of a mid tier antagonist who fulfills his role, so to say. But as a character, he's a very high tier character. Like, I wrote a lot of key points about him right here. Now let me walk you through his character really quickly. Sephiroth was a... Actually, let me take a sip of water before I go on because my mouth is dry. So yeah, enjoy the noise. So yeah, Sephiroth. He was a good soldier, he was genuinely a good person, who was humane and kind and brave, and he actually liked people who had friends. He had his smaller issues, so to say, but overall he was a good person who wanted to do good. Ultimately, however, he went crazy over realization that he is a biological experiment and biological weapon. He then proceeded to develop a complex, believing himself to be Messiah sent by Jenova, while evil humans are the ones to blame for Jenova's poor state, as his mind tried to make sense of everything that he learned about himself, and his personality got warped, making him more twisted and cruel and evil. However, he is still lonely and tired from it all, because especially in Final Fantasy Dissidia, in some key points, you can see him wondering if the path he chosen is the right one, especially in his fight against Warrior Flight. And if Kefka explores themes of nihilism and loneliness, I would say that Sephiroth explores themes of loneliness and existential crisis. And I probably should talk about this later, but I believe that Sephiroth is one of the 4 characters in Final Fantasy series who completes a line of tragic, redeemable or irredeemable characters. That will make a little bit more sense once I get to Kuja. But yeah, Sephiroth overall, I love him because of how much his personality was twisted based upon realization who he was and how he tried to make sense out of it all. And in terms of design, I would say he's a mid-tier character. He has a really amazing androgynous look to him, and I really love his haircut and his eyes, but his outfit is pretty standard and he's pretty standard katana. He has elegance, so I'm gonna give him that, but that's about it. Next one is Ultimecia from Final Fantasy VIII. Now, with Ultimecia, there was 2 options I could have taken. I could view her as the way the game presents herself, or I can view her from position of a person who believes into theory of Riona is Ultimecia. I'm not gonna go over this theory right now, but I do believe in this theory because it makes sense to me. Therefore, I'm gonna go off this theory. Now, based on this theory, Ultimecia is a mid-tier antagonist because she does start the whole thing by starting to fuck up with time, and she does try to stop your gang because she's been told a prophecy that that heroes will come to defeat her, and that's why she suspects that you are those heroes, and she tries to stop you. But just like Sephiroth, she never really does too much things directly against you, and we never saw her that much, and therefore I have to knock her down a little bit. But as a character, she's a high tier. Now, once again, we are basing it from the theory that Riona is Ultimecia, and from this theory, we have the following idea. Ultimecia was a good girl who was in love with Squall, almost to Yandere levels, who was later left heartbroken as her friends and loved ones died around her and she was left alive. Her Yandere tendencies grew and she began researching time magic. Her personality was corrupted because she lacked her knight, being Squall, to emotionally support her, and her memory and mind slowly were warped as she used Guardian Force more and more. In the end, Ultimecia only remembered that she wanted to compress time to return to a time when she was happy, unable to truly remember anything else. She could not remember what was the thing that made her happy, but she remembered that this was her goal, and she was bent on it because she wanted to feel happiness once again. And it's really sad. There's no better one than this. It's just sad. When I put it this way, Ultimecia kind of sounds like a person who would drink wine while alone and listening to music. I'm not sure. I feel like she's kind of person who would do that. She's definitely a high tier MILF. Now, as a design, high tier in my opinion. She has this amazing fancy dress with this feathery top, which I really love. She has cool hair horns in Juri or Jolene style from Street Fighter and JoJo respectively. And her hands and feet, which might sound odd, are pretty cool too because they are not human. They have this animalistic almost look to them, but also this kind of texture which is very ethereal and magical. So yeah, I find it really cool. And in her power-up form, she just looks like a clock of death, which I think is very thematical. Final Fantasy IX, Kuja. High tier antagonist. I mean, he's just great. At first, he looks nothing more than a pawn of Garland. And I'm not talking about the good Garland from Final Fantasy 1, I'm talking about the shitty Garland in Final Fantasy 9. But later on, we quickly learn that, you know, Kuja is much more than a pawn. He is not only an antagonistic force who pushes the story forward, but he's also a moral opposite of our characters, and especially Zidane. And that helps him as antagonist a lot because he's a very established opposite of Zidane, which makes their interactions very natural. As a character, he's a very high tier character. He's actually the one who finishes our tragic villain line, which I talked about a few moments ago, which I will explain once I finish talking about his character. He is once again a living biological weapon who was created for war and who never experienced proper childhood, so to say. When he learns that his master, Garland, wishes him dead, he decided to backstab him because, well, he does not want to die, and he believes that he is too great to die, and he decides to grow even stronger because he wishes to take control of his own destiny and his own life. He starts to lose it once he realizes his own mortality. He starts to completely lose it and believes that life should not go on without him. One of the most telling parts about his character is how he identifies with black mages, living weapons that he himself created. For this reason, they are living weapons who have feelings and emotion but are being used nothing more as weapons, and he identifies with it because he's the same thing, but he also hates it because he believes that he should be more than this. Ultimately, in the end of it all, he realizes his mistakes after some needed conversation with Zidane, and even goes as far as helping heroes escape their death by teleporting them away from a harmful place in which they were before dying himself. And in terms of design, I mean, high tier. He's a JoJo character. He's elegant, he's fabulous, he's gorgeous, he has this amazing androgynous look to him, amazing haircut, amazing outfit, just absolutely fucking hot in my opinion. Now, tragic villains. I mentioned it a few times what I'm talking about. Well, it's a little thing which I noticed for myself mostly. And it is how Final Fantasy 6 to 9 have 4 villains who range from not redeemable to redeemable, and all of them are equally tragic. You have Kefka all the way on the left, who is a tragic character, but he's completely and utterly unredeemable. Then you have Sephiroth, who's kind of in the middle but closer to Kefka, who's tragic and unredeemable, but there are signs that he kind of realizes that maybe what he's doing is not right. Then, in the middle but closer to the right, you have Ultimetse, who is tragic, but it does feel like she can be redeemed if only she could get help of some sort. And then, to the far right, you have Kuja, who is not only tragic, but also redeemable, because he kinda did redeem himself at the end. So yeah, that's just a little thing that I noticed myself when I was writing about villains. Now, after Kuja, you have Final Fantasy X and you have Jet. As antagonist, I would say that he's a low tier antagonist because he's not really antagonist. If anything, during the events of Final Fantasy X Ultimo Omega, we learned that he was actually hero himself, kind of, and the only reason why he acts as antagonist is because he kind of failed to defeat the true big guy, who's Yu Yoven. So yeah, as a character, however, high tier. Jet starts out as a famous sportsman who is arrogant bully, who's kind of abusive to his son, though not as much as Tidus's mom is. And he's not nice all around, but he does have a gentle heart. And as we follow his journey through Final Fantasy X Ultimania Omega, we learn that he's indeed a nice person, and he's ashamed of his behavior and things that he's done. And through the story, he tries to become better. He fights against his alcohol problems, and he fights against his toxic personality. It's actually quite ironic. It's quite ironic how Jet is actually a character who means. Oh my god, okay, let me go back a few steps. Jet is a character who, ironically enough, kind of is a commentary on toxic masculinity and how to overcome it, if you really think about it. And it's really interesting to me personally. And in terms of design, low tier. I mean, he looks amazing, and he has really amazing sword, and he looks really metal in his power-up form, but overall, his design is very standard. I mean, he looks like a surfer, which is not bad, but it is what it is. Now we have Final Fantasy XII with, hope I'm pronouncing it right, Vian, Caradus, Solidar. I've never played Final Fantasy XII, so I had to read about Final Fantasy XII a lot, and I hope that I have a good understanding of his character. Now, as an antagonist, I would say he's a mid-tier antagonist. He's nothing new, like, he wants power, and he is this evil ruler who wants power, and he's cruel and cold but calculated, and that's about it. I mean, the things that makes his character a little bit better is that he does not start out as this ruler, and we kind of see him become one, and that makes him more interesting, but overall, it's nothing new. But as a character, he's a high tier character. Like, wow, he is cold, ruthless, and calculated, and really ambitious, but he's not really evil. The reason why he wants to rule over people is because he, interestingly enough, wants to take control of this land from the gods and give it back to people, and he believes that he, as the most capable, must be at the seat of power and help people rule themselves away from gods. That is actually a very good goal, if I may say so myself. And it is kind of commentary on religion, if you want. Now, being smart for villains is nothing new. I mean, Mateus is smart, and Ultimetse is smart, Sephiroth is smart. But the thing with Vian, I think, is that he's not strong, he's not really powerful, and he is intimidating and dangerous just because of his smart brain, which is incredible. I do believe that his power form, when he powered up and became this dragon person, I do believe that this was unnecessary and kind of ruined his character. And it is interesting how technically he did win in the end, because he did wrestle the control away from the gods in the world of Final Fantasy XII, which means that he kind of did win. Now I really like how Gabraf was the character to kind of deliver him a final blow. And the reason why I think it was Gabraf is because Gabraf was the character to deliver a final fatal blow to Vayne when he was still a human before his power up. So I consider Gabraf being the person who ultimately kills him, at least his human form, which is the most important one here. And I just in general think that he and Gabraf, they play off one another much better than he ever played against Van, and I really don't understand why Van is just there. I don't like him. And in terms of style, he's actually a high tier character. I mean, he has this basic, not basic, standard military commander general royal kind of outfit, but he owns it hard and it looks good. It's kind of simple, but it's kind of a situation where less is more. For anyone who's seen Saga of Tanya the Evil, yeah, he pretty much has the same vibe as Tanya. Next, we have Caius Ballad from Final Fantasy XIII. And Final Fantasy XIII, ooh, that's an odd one. I plan to make another video about Final Fantasy XIII and analyze it itself. But to be short over here and not talk too much about it, I believe that Final Fantasy XIII is not as bad as people say that it is, and I don't think it's bad at all. I think that it's just confused, and that's why it was so hard to understand Caius, but let's see if I can make sense of him. Now, as antagonist, I think he's a high tier antagonist. I mean, the guy went mad because of the situation he was put in, so he starts manipulating events to destroy the whole world. He acts as antagonist to force heroes to fight him, provoking them, and eventually causes them to kill him. But then we learn that this was part of his plan, and being killed by heroes was something that he needed to do in order for him to become chaos itself. So he went from a mortal to immortal to Avatar of Chaos and eventually God of Death. That is pretty huge if you ask me. Now, in terms of character, I also decided to say that he was a high tier character. He was a kind warrior who loved a certain person but went mad after he was granted the gift of being immortal and seeing this person he cared about die and reborn over and over again because of who she was, a oracle of sorts, and she would also always die at a very young age because of her powers as well. This cruel fate pushed him to seek the most radical of answers, which was to destroy the whole world itself, because there was no other way to free himself and his beloved from this fate. He eventually becomes Avatar of Chaos, something that should be not quite possible for a mortal, and something that pushed him only further down the insane path. Now, the part where it becomes kind of tragic is where he cannot even die or disappear because his existence is kept by the belief of his beloved named Yuel, who keeps him going because there are several versions of her because of the paradoxes that he created. And some of those versions do want him to pass on, but other versions wishes him to stay with her forever, which causes him to exist for pretty much ever, unable to die. Eventually, from what I understand, the main world in which the story takes place dies and a new world is created. People go to this new world while he, Caius, remains in the old world with one of the versions of his beloved, Yuel, and he resides there as a god of death. And now, people who die go to this destroyed world where he, as a god of death, grants them either eternal rest or rebirth. It is huge. There are a lot of religious and avant-garde themes in there, as you can probably notice, and it's quite sad. And I hope I got it right, because I'm not gonna lie, understanding his character was confusing, because Final Fantasy 13 is confusing, and confusion is something that will come up a lot in my discussion about Final Fantasy 13. Now, in terms of design, I decided to give him mid-tier. There's nothing really much to say about his design. He's stylish, but not much. He is really close to looking as a discount hot topic emo guy, which is not a good look. So yeah, he's okay. That's about it. Next, we have Ardyn Izunya from Final Fantasy 15. I decided to say that he's a mid-tier antagonist. Uh, so, pretty much take everything I said about Caius and apply it here. He was pushed to do what he's doing because of gods and the role that they bestow upon him to play out the scenario which way they wanted to play out. Fun fact: Final Fantasy 15 is the first Final Fantasy game where bad guy, being Bahamut, definitively wins. Yeah, let that sink in. Now, as a character, he's a high tier character. I don't think that was unexpected. He was kind person who was chosen by the gods to defeat this disease called Star Scourge by absorbing it into himself. He did not mind that, and he indeed was welcoming it as he wanted to help people. But and people loved him, and he was destined to become the first king. But his brother, I believe, grew jealous of him and backstabbed him, killed his wife, and then imprisoned him for 2,000 years. With how much Star Scourge he absorbed, he eventually became Star Scourge incarnate and gained power to turn people into demons, the very thing he fought against one day in the past. His personality soon began to twist as well because of the fact that the woman he loved and who he viewed as a goddess was taken away from him. His brother went on to establish a powerful kingdom, and his family was beloved by people even though they did not know what kind of thing he did, and gods did not help him one bit through his suffering, and that pushed and kept pushing him further and further to just becoming bitter and angry and cynical. And then in the end, when he was about to take revenge against one of his brother's descendants, being about to kill him to end the family for once and for all, Bahamut stopped him and said that he has to play the version of antagonist for the next king, so the events that he, Bahamut, planned for will play out. Ardyn is pretty much a softcore version of Kefka, in my opinion, where he explores the themes of nihilism and loneliness as well. And I gotta say, he is the exact reason why I kinda enjoyed the novel, which was written for Final Fantasy 15, called Final Fantasy 15 The Dawn of the Future, because in this novel, Ardyn gets at least some sort of payback and at least some sort of a happier conclusion, because otherwise Final Fantasy 15 is just depressing. It's depressing. And in terms of design, I decided to give him mid-tier. He has a pretty nice outfit with this really good vintage vibe, and he owns it, but besides that, it's nothing special. But his outfit does tie in with his personality, because it's this stylish, laid-back, professional outfit, and it ties into how he is as a character. Now, we're left with only two antagonists to go, so hopefully I can push through this. Chaos from Final Fantasy Dissidia. I believe him to be a low-tier antagonist, simply because he's not really a bad guy. He does what he has to do because he wishes to escape World B, and the true bad guy is Shinryu, but I'm not gonna talk about him because there's not much to talk about him because he's just an asshole. Now, as a character, Chaos is a high-tier character, obviously. Let me quickly walk you through his character. He's a sentient biological weapon who was created as a this ugly being who was feared by people of his kingdom, but he was taken in by the family who genuinely loved him. He was later taken by the government to fulfill his duty, and during the war, he saw things that warped his personality and twisted him, changing him forever. However, he still loved his family, and his family remained to be the only positive thing in his life. But then government decided to come and confiscate him, and when his family decided to go against it, they killed his mother, which in turn him caused him to rage so much that he tore a hole in the rift, causing him, his father, and his mother, dead mother, to be transported to World A. Now, being stuck in World A, him and his father made pact with Shinryu where he would gain enough power in order to escape it. In there, he was made to be a bad guy called Chaos, who would summon warriors of evil against warriors of good, who would fight against Cosmos, goddess who was artificially created by Chaos's dad in the image of his dead mother. So yeah, it's safe to say that Sid, his father, fucked up twice at the very least. Like, he should have just made Chaos a good guy, or at least not shape Cosmos into looking like his mother. But yeah, Chaos was forced into this role, and he did not want to do it because he did not want to fight a woman who visually was looking like his mother. But as the time went on, and because of the little thing that Shinryu did not mention, he slowly started losing his memories until one day he could not remember why he was fighting anymore, so he simply killed Cosmos and started the events of Final Fantasy Dissidia 012, where the whole world was going to shit. He wasn't able to remember anything. He was alone because Warriors of Chaos either did not care about him or were plotting to overthrow him, and he just felt sad. But there was one friend who he had, who was Garland, who honestly felt for him. Garland told him the truth and everything that he knew about him, because Garland was one of the people who was kept from losing his memories. Upon realization of what he has done and who he is and what happened, Chaos lost the will for everything. He lost the will to fight or escape the World B, and he simply sent Garland away to World A, setting into motion events of Final Fantasy 1, and he welcomed the Warriors of Light at once and got defeated by them. It's important to mention that in the very end, Chaos had the power needed to escape World B. He finally gained enough power, but he simply did not care anymore. He was so lonely and sad and miserable that he did not care, and he preferred to just burn as the whole world was destroyed with him. Chaos from Final Fantasy Dissidia is literally an ugly puppy who is being punched over and over again to make you feel bad. And in terms of design, I would say he's a mid-tier character. He's kind of what you expect a God of Chaos in Discord to look like. He's kind of copycat of Chaos from Final Fantasy 1, but when you think about it in terms of lore, it's Goron who copied him. And overall, it's a standard design, but it's interesting, it's intimidating, it's scary. So yeah, that's why I decided to give him mid-tier instead of low tier. Now there's one character who I did not know how to rank, and it's Remedy from Final Fantasy. What was it? Final Fantasy Advanced Tactics, I believe. I placed her as my top pick for Final Fantasy villains in terms of power, so I decided to rank her, but there's not much to say about her. She is low tier in both being antagonist and character, because she's not really a person, but an imaginary character existing to keep up a world of fantasy for Sid, from what I could gather. And that's about it, sadly. At least she's high tier character in terms of design. As a human, she has this cool haircut with a neat dress and a cool staff, and in her power-up form, she becomes this purple blue energy plasma ghost goddess wisp fairy thing. So yeah, I would not mind seeing her in Final Fantasy the CDNT. Maybe that would give her character something more, and I could make another video about her. Hey, maybe, who knows? But yeah, hopefully this video is probably long again. I'm absolutely tired from talking this much, so I'm gonna go take a break now. And I do hope that you enjoyed my rambling, and it was somewhat entertaining at the very least. And if you have any thoughts about what I said or the such, do comment below. And if it's not too much to ask, I would like to actually know if you would like me to see make similar videos about good guys, about heroes and protagonists of Final Fantasy, as in ranking them in terms of power and personality, because I can do that. I would like to do that, and I want to know if you want me to do that, because it kind of depends on you, because you watch my videos here, hopefully. With that being said, I'm gonna probably take a small break from Final Fantasy. Next few videos, probably 3-4 videos, will be not about Final Fantasy, and the next video after that, probably my 4th-5th video after this video, will be my discussion analysis video on Final Fantasy 13. So I hope you're gonna be here for that, because I have high hopes with it, because I think it can be very interesting. And with that being said, this outro is way too long. Thank you for stopping by, and me and my smacking lips. We'll see you next time. Bye.